He's a beautiful.
So are you.
Thank you.
Is about a divorced, lonely, middle-aged woman who had an affair with a young thief, stealing her life, savings, and all from a 2020 film called A Fall from Grace Tyler Perry. Grace was a middle-aged woman who was a banker for years, and 7 years had passed since she divorced her ex-husband, the father of her son, who had left her and married his secretary from his mortgage company, only 5 years older than theirs. Despite that, she managed to buy her own house. She felt used by her husband for the life they had built together. She was lonely, and a point reached when all she wanted was her life back. She wanted to be loved and cared for, and she wanted to love someone. But for her age, she thought it would be very hard. She had who she thought was her best friend called Sarah, her tenant, who advised her to go out and meet with someone. And Grace was like, who would love a woman? Sarah suggested she gets a date online. But Grace was totally old school. She wanted someone to appreciate and go after her, give him a little hard time, and go out together for some dates until she said yes. So one day Sarah suggested to her to go to an art gallery opening for a friend of hers because she was worried about her being in the house too much. Though this wasn't the kind of her thing, Grace went anyways for Sarah, despite the fact that she was tired because she was from work. And she met with a young, handsome man called Shannon who had a USO necklace from Africa that got her attention since she loved African history, and who happened to be the owner of the gallery, by the way. She had no hope that she would ever see the guy again, and she had no idea how he got to know her work address, because then he started flirting with her with gifts, and she was really intrigued. Her friend Sarah encouraged her to call him, and before she even knew what was going on in her love life, she was on multiple dates with the guy but still playing it hard. The old school woman kind of way of not just letting him into her house and heart. Of course, she started feeling young again, she was happy after 7 years of being lonely since her divorce. And slowly but surely, Shannon was now beyond being on her mind and taking over her heart because of how kind, charming, sweet, and caring he was to her. The day he proposed to her at a romantic place, before she knew it, she had said yes. She let him into her house for the first time. And the next thing was a wedding in a church, making him officially her husband. Depending on the state of Virginia they were in, all the riches she had now belonged to Shannon. Just when she was wondering who had impersonated her, she got the news that her husband had got a mortgage loan of $375,000, which was now their house, meaning he had the right to it after she got proof that it was him who did it. Shannon was like he needed the money and he could not ask her for money. He did not only stop at this, but he also started bringing his young girlfriends into their house in their master room, and he didn't care if Grace was around or not, because then he would tell his young girlfriends that she was his mother. At this point, even though bringing the girls in her house was hurting, all she asked of him was to return the money he had stole, or else she was going to end up in jail. And he was like, it was his payment for giving her joy from her miserable life before she met him. The way he said these hurting things pissed her off, since he didn't care if she ended up in jail. And with rage, she hit him with a baseball stick on his head and thought he had. This was another shock of her life, so she aimlessly drove far away from her house and later on called Sarah, who she thought was her best friend, and told her that Shannon's body was in her house. But when she got there, the body was not there, and later on, Grace was arrested for murder. To cut the whole story short, Grace was ready to plead guilty on the condition they put her in a prison near her son. They sent her this rookie lawyer called Jasmine, who after hearing about her story, was ready to defend her in court, which she lost. Luckily, she managed to find out that Shannon was still alive, and unveiled Sarah's shady business of stealing from middle-aged, lonely, divorced rich women, setting them up with her son Shannon to get them out of their loneliness, and later stealing from them and holding them captive in her basement. Shannon, who was later found to be Morris Mills, was killed in the process of Jasmine defending herself with the help of her husband, who was Shannon's mother. Sarah, whose real identity was Betty Mills, managed to escape, and the state of Virginia apologized to Grace Waters and let her free. If you have come this far, thanks for watching, and consider subscribing now for interesting recaps.
Wait, we go back there?
Oh, darling, if you see